neighbour of mine in New South Wales, and then after that, I suffered from depression, and I ended up in hospital for many years and things like that. And then I thought to myself, oh, maybe there's a lesson there, for me and stuff like that. And at one stage, I felt as though I was inside a giant wooden sort of barrel, and had someone to grease the sides, and I kept on slipping down and stuff like that. So it was an amazing sort of feeling, and I thought to myself, geez, I don't want this sort of thing. I've got to do something about it, And so I started reading some self-help books and going to healing groups and things like that. And that, as a gradual thing, that sort of did help me and everything else. And it's amazing how over the years, and then what's that saying about when the student is ready, the teacher comes along. Yeah, which has been absolutely amazing, and how things have gradually turned around, and to this day, I go through this depression again to be where I am now. It's like it's full circle, and everything else. It's incredible, and every day now, when I go to bed and then wake up in the morning, I put it out there, for love and gratitude, and everything else for during the day. And when I get out of bed of a morning, I get really excited, about the day, and it's incredible how even just going shopping, sort of thing, and then meeting people. I don't spend much time actually doing the shopping, but at times, I meet 5 or 6 people locally, and it's like it's meant to be, the synchronicity of it all, and it's absolutely amazing. It's almost magical how things, all fall into place, and doors have opened, and everything else. And so to me, just bring it on, like it's just amazing. I just love everyone and everything, and nature and the animals and everything else, and now I am living in the now, whereas before maybe I wanted to go to the destination. It's like a lot of people, like they say with kids in the car, are we there yet, type of thing, and when they actually get to the destination, is this all there is? So it's, to me and everything else, it's about the journey itself, and just being present and everything else. So it's just absolutely amazing how things have happened in the last few years, through friends that they've sort of told me regarding Michael and your group and Lotus and everything else, which has been amazing. And to everyone associated with it, and I just love it, and I think there's only one time that I haven't been here, sort of thing, but it's incredible. I just,
it's great.
Yeah, and I just want to say, thank you, Michael, for opening up your home and your sort of your heart and everything else, and that's what and pantry. All right. Oh, sorry, you could say that's food for thought.
Well, thank you, Alan, for coming and being a regular.
Thank you so much. And also too, I'd like to thank my friend Isabella, that I've known for about 10 years, and she has really helped me as well,
Well, it's very brave to speak up in front of people, because everybody knows you, but we don't know you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. No, but
so thank you for opening your
an,
heart to let us know.
Absolutely amazing. To me, just bring it on. It just sort of incredible.
It's great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. No, thank you all.
Is everything? Is that everything? Yeah.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Alan.
Cheers. Thank you. Love you all. Thank you.
Okay, Andrew, the small fellow that's just over there.
Do you want me to sit down? Or?
No, you can stand up over there, that's good. Yep.
Hi, I'm Andrew. Yeah, it's good to hear gratitude and the connection with the reality around us. And it was quite interesting when we first started this. I've picked two things to talk about, and that video triggered me because I'm ex-military and I've done some of that stuff, and I didn't put it like I couldn't put it together what's going on. But you know, it was interesting earlier, even before that, somebody made a statement about their life and how they put it together, and then there was 3 or 4 people that had a different idea. Now this is the mechanism. Now that person was speaking their truth, and this is one of the mechanisms where we never get to the truth because we're busy opposing each other, whereas we're actually all saying the same thing but in our own way. And this is what I've learned on my journey, right, is that you pull your information in, don't push it out because it doesn't serve you. Pull it in, and then you come to a truth. So I've been spiritual my whole life, and I had visitation. I was a home birth in the UK in '64, and I had a celestial visitor. So my parents say could have been angel, extraterrestrial, whatever. But they were there to see it, but couldn't visually see it, but they observed. So I was a couple of hours old. It was about a couple of minutes to midnight, October, getting cold at night. And this baby was barely an hour and a half old and started gurgling, newborn, started gurgling, laughing, and interacting with this entity. And then it left, and they knew it left because the wind as it left, there was a fireplace there, and the wind went past my parents and they knew it gone, and I went back to sleep. So I don't want to go on too much about my life, there's too much to say. But I did decide to share 2 things, and it was amazing what I decided on because this guy covered it. And he's given me the answers I was hoping some of you might actually be able to give me. So one day I was travelling to Melbourne, and I was on the beach at Eden with a friend in New South Wales, and I was reading this spiritual book, and just like some of you, I've always heard the voice before I was 5 from a very, very young age, and as long as I do what it says, I've tried and tested this, and the outcome is always positive, loving, fruitful, and if there's anything else, I'd ditch it, right? Miraculous healings at 14, all sorts of stuff. And so I've been privy to all of this stuff. And you have to, you know, I'm very scientific too, and so I have to reason what is going on. There's a parallel reality, and I'm preaching to the converted here. So this is a really easy audience. No one's going to sort of think I'm crazy, so it's easy to talk. Here we are living this life, but we're all talking about an energetic, extraterrestrial, spiritual existence at the same time. So there's parallel truths, and we all know that's a reality, and so we can accept that as truth. And once we do that and we accept it inwards, our experiences will actually heighten. So we help each other, just like what Alan shared. His life's a lot better, and that's credit to the people around him. Yeah. So keep it short, what I wanted to share was, so I was on the beach at Eden. I was about 30 years old, and the voice told me to read this spiritual book out aloud. And I was like, no, that's a really odd thing to say, and I've learnt at 30 not to question the voice, so I did it. And there was an entity there, it was so powerful, and it objected to me reading that particular book. And I had a friend with me, I had a witness, and what was 8 o'clock in the morning, no breeze, cool, became an absolute tempest. It was like cyclonic. This wind blew up, and it was hot, like middle of the day hot. And I thought, oh yeah, I know what's going on here. And I read louder. So I was pushing back the pages because the wind was so furious. But on top of that, it was so furious, it was blowing the sand onto the page. And at the end, I couldn't read the words. And I'm like furiously going like this, trying to keep the pages down, and then woof, all these pages went over, and I was so angry because it beat me, and I just went, stop! I was so angry. And the wind stopped dead. Now I just made the wind stop on command. And that friend just looked around and went, crap. Just disbelief. But the thing is, like, I believe what happened there was there's a power of intent, there's a power of love, there's a power of hate, there's a power of belief and a power of disbelief. Why should you get something if you don't believe it? Does the energy structure itself when you absolutely believe in what you're saying? Like this guy, he can walk through walls. How many of you sat there and went, geez, that's a stretch? Do you want to try it? You know what I mean? But there it is. That wind just stopped on my command. And I thought, well, that's speaking to me about energy and the way the universe is actually structured. And so it sort of instills I didn't have any turning points because I was always this spiritual being, but it's a turning point in terms of what you believe. How far do you take this? And so, you know, from that point on, the power of love to me is so important, because if you're putting anything else out, what are you creating? What kind of world do you want? So I'll share the next thing. I've never been one for UFOs and stuff like this. It's not that I disbelieve, I respect everyone's opinion and experiences and what have you. And so I'm open to anything. So a psychic friend of mine said once, Sarah, she was really psychic, she could find your pet dog. And she said, they only appear to the people that resonate in a certain frequency, and they choose who they want to appear to. And I said, oh yeah, and if you look away, they disappear. So a couple of weeks later, I was at the Aspley Drive-In, and the sun was going down. All the advertisements were rolling. I was a bit, you know, just looking around the place, and I had a girlfriend at the time, chugga in my ear, and I thought, oh yeah, looking. And I saw this blue and red light. It's about 5 kilometres away, just to the left of the bottom of the screen. And I felt like it was like talking to me. It was really weird. So I was watching it without blinking. I remember what Sarah said just a couple of weeks earlier. And it was there for 5 minutes. It wasn't supported by anything from the ground. It wasn't moving away, and it was definitely aerial. And I thought, gee, that's odd. So 5 minutes later, Marie's still talking to me. And I said, Marie, what do you think that is? And we're both looking at it. And we looked at it for another 2 minutes. And then I said, do you reckon that's a UFO? And we had a moment. And when we looked back, it was gone. Right? So that's a questionable sighting. But what's really remarkable about that was the next night I had a gig. You know, I was like about 30. And I agreed to do some security work at the Sherwood RSL. And so they said, yeah, turn up at 7. So, you know, I was quite fit and buff at the time, being younger. And I was having trouble getting there at 7. So I wasn't thinking of that. I was just like, let's get there. And I just arrived in the lobby with 30 seconds to spare. And I thought, oh, brilliant, I'm here. Hot summer's night, and I could wipe the sweat and all the rest of it. And no sooner had I arrived there, I was standing there this tall. This guy, he was about this tall, skinny, does a rugby tackle into me, just boom! And I just looked down, what are you doing? And he looks up at me with these dark eyes, and he looks me in the eye without blinking, and he says, you never remember in the morning, you know. And the hair on the back of my head just went, and I looked down and I kept my logical self intact, and I looked at him and said, what are you talking about? And he kept the gaze and he said, you know. So then he started telling me about his abduction. How these, I think they would have been greys. They made a portal. He was in bed. They made a portal. He saw them stepping through, and they came over. and then he passed out, and he's assuming they took him up back through the portal. And then he woke up earlier than what he was supposed to, and they were putting him back in bed, and they were standing around his bed, and they said, oh yeah, they never remember in the morning. So they must have only had some sort of semi-consciousness or something like that. And these are his words, and he said, so I got up, and I went to the toilet, and I was holding my old fella, exact words, and he noticed these symmetrical black dots. Did it, up the arm, all the rest of it, everywhere. And as he looked, they disappeared. And I said to him, so what was the point of that? He goes, I don't know. And the logical part of me sort of thought, I asked him, so have you ever had any head trauma? So we're looking for brain damage, right? And he said, yeah, I've been in a head-on car accident and I suffered brain trauma. I lost the use of the left side of my arm and part of my body. And I said, how's that going? And he looked at me really weird and he goes, you know, I hadn't even thought of that. I've got full use. And I said, doesn't that strike you as odd? So you know, that was fascinating. It was actually, it changed my perception, because you can have all these spiritual beliefs, you can have all these experiences, and you've got to join the dots, so to speak, if you excuse the use of the word. And that is that spirituality, energy, controlling the wind, your command, the power of what you believe and what you want to manifest and what you can do, is tied in very directly to all of this stuff about extraterrestrials. The truth about our existence is, and I don't want to sound conspiratorial, it's like, it's being hidden from us. And it's groups like this that pose a challenge to authorities and what have you, because if we can wake up, you'll be amazed how free you actually are. It's just incredible. So, you know, that's my share and that's my take on everything. And, you know, the journey just continues as long as you're alive, as long as you're breathing. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, yeah. Andrew. Bante, your turn.
My turn, is it? Okay. Mine's going to be a little bit different.
Cool.
Thank you, Andrew. Like Andrew, I had that sort of companionship from a very, very early age, but I always kept it very, very quiet. But I thought today I'd talk about my channeling journey rather than just talking about extraterrestrials. Okay, and because I always felt very different, which is fairly common, I think, amongst all of us, I kept a lot of my own stuff to myself for many, many years. But it was starting about the 90s when I discovered the Seth materials. And I devoured those books like they were my gospel, because everything that Seth had channeled through Jane Roberts really, really resonated. And I felt as though it validated my conception of reality, my beliefs in that. And I never thought that I'd end up channeling, but obviously that wasn't part of the plan, because the plan was I was meant to channel. And so in the 90s, I was very, very busy doing massages, kinesiology, and all of those things that you do. I had a bit of a practice going. And very often with clients, I would get messages for them and I would share them, all channeled. And I was very comfortable doing that. And then a friend asked me, or invited me to a lovely little dinner party at her place. The whole lot of people I didn't know. And by that stage, I was used to all these different entities or beings coming through. I had to suss them out, make sure that they had a good vibe. And anyway, at this particular dinner party, I was just sitting there and I could feel this energy coming in. And telepathically, I'm saying, go away. Go away, not here. It's not appropriate, so on. And instead, that energy moved right into me and I started speaking. I started talking about, in a very strong masculine voice, about the earth changes, about the chaos, and all this sort of stuff. Well, that was the end of the dinner party, wasn't it? Geez, I tell you what, my head was like this, and I thought, never, ever again. But that wasn't to be the case. And over the years, I've learnt that there are three different types of channeling that can be experienced. The first one is I guess I'd say a mild sort of channeling, where the words come through and there's full cognizance of what's being said. But it's just an energy, you can feel the tingles, you can feel it coming through, and not always in that sort of regular voice. The second type of channeling that I've experienced has been, I guess, a medium type of channeling, where I really can change my voice, and a lot of information comes in, and it can come in really fast, and I don't remember. And the third type of channeling is where I go into a deep, deep trance, and I am totally out of it. And those have been my sorts of experiences. Now, in about 97, in my healing room, I had this visitation from these beings. They were Arcturian, and they offered to be my teachers. Okay? And they sort of said, well, there are some things that we would like you to do for us. And so one of the things was I was to absolutely read no more spiritual books, absolutely none. Nor was I to go to any more classes. And they worked with me right through until the early 2000s, taught me all about energy, frequency, vibration, took it all to a whole new level that I had never expected. And on top of that, they had me sitting down every morning recording a live channeling onto a recording instrument. And so I put that into a book, and the book was just beautiful. It was all about, the messages were all about who we are meant to be, the nature of reality. And I remember getting information about the fact that there would be a proliferation of cancers, that there would be a proliferation of a whole lot of news outlets and media outlets, and a lot of information that would come through. One of the most striking bits of information that I do remember that went into the book was that World War III would not be anything like World War I and II. It would be a war of the mind. Does that resonate?
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
Happening now.
Yes, it's happening now. So basically this little booklet it's a little book actually that I had published, pretty much laid down the foundation of what was ahead for us. And the book has been used extensively in groups, with groups in the USA, because there's a lot of wisdom in that. But then after that, and along the way, I did work with a lot of other entities. The Arcturians kept telling me, raise your vibration. And I got a lot of personal guidance on how to shift my consciousness, my vibration, because as they pointed out, that in order to get accurate information, reliable information, I had to raise my frequency as high as I could possibly do through diet, through meditation and all of those things, and all the spiritual practices, because as I raised my vibration, they could bring theirs down a little bit and we'd meet somewhere in the middle, so that whatever came through in the channeling could be as clear and as pure and as accurate as is possible. Now, I was really comfortable just doing that on my own. I was very amazed and surprised by the incredible wisdom that came in. And then I moved to the US. And I apologise if this is a bit of a long story, but there's a purpose to it. Then I moved to the US, and look, I was channeling all sorts of entities, many of whom I could identify, many of whom I'd said go away, that sort of thing. But it wasn't until 2007 when I was in the middle of getting acupuncture, and I was just lying there with needles all over my body, looking like a porcupine, very relaxed, when all of a sudden I felt this wave of energy going across my face, and I'm thinking, that's a bit weird. you know, why is it moving? And then it's over the top of my body, and I was just lying there. And then all of a sudden, I felt this whoosh of energy go right into my solar plexus and right into my body. And I'm going, what the F? What the heck just happened? So I asked Sherry, who's both a shaman and an acupuncturist and many other things, I said, what was that? And I remember her seeing her so clearly. She had glasses on, she just raised them. And she looked at my body and she said, that was Edgar. And I'm going, Edgar who? Edgar Casey. She said, he's often here. He often helps me with clients. And I said, yeah, but he's gone inside my body. And she said, yeah, he's going to be there for quite a long while. And I'm going, what does this mean? So to cut a long story short, over the next few months, I felt this energy. It ended up sitting as a 30 centimetre or 12-inch filament of energy in my kundalini. And I had to get used to this high frequency energy, very, very high frequency. It was literally the energy of the soul that embodied as Edgar Casey. It wasn't Edgar Casey per se, it was the energy of the soul that embodied as Edgar Casey. Okay, so it sat there. In the meantime, I divorced my second husband and I moved from Seattle to New York with this energy sitting there, talking to me just about every night. A lot of telepathic communication, a lot about telling me how I needed to make changes in my life, how I needed to raise my frequency even more, about the things that were coming up. It was just like being in a relationship again. So anyway, there I get to New York, and the whole time my ego, my human mind is saying, what the bleep does this mean? How is this going to change me? Have I been taken over by an entity? And how long will it be here for? Will I lose my sense of who I am? Will my identity go? You know, all of those human questions. So anyway, I arrived in New York in about October in 2007. And then in about 6 months later, after Edgar and I had established a fairly good relationship, we did have some problems. Edgar craved hamburgers and I don't eat meat. Edgar craved strawberries and cream and I don't do dairy. You know, so, and Edgar was a tall, I could see him so clearly, the human configuration. And I felt as if he just couldn't fit inside of me the right way he needed to. But anyway, about 6 months after arriving in New York, I did my first public channeling. And if you know anything about the life and the work of Edgar Casey, he was a northeaster. In other words, he lived in the northeast of the USA. There were aficionados like you wouldn't believe. Everybody knew about Edgar. I didn't. Everybody knew his history, they knew his teachings, they read his books. They'd been down to the big building that was, I guess, built and erected in honour of his work, because he was the prophet of the 19th century, 19th, 20th century. The sleeping prophet he was known as. So there I was, I felt like I was in the lion's den with all these people who knew about Edgar and I didn't. And that was where I got into the deep trance channeling. Prior to that, it had been all the light stuff. My first public channeling went for an hour. Deep trance, had no idea of what I said, but I was recording it. And afterwards, it went down well, but a lot of skepticism from people. You know, I was going into foreign territory. I got a lot of questions. But after that, it took me a full week to recover. I discovered that my body had been totally depleted of all essential nutrients, all vitamins, all minerals, that sort of stuff. I was as weak as a kitten, a newborn kitten. And a good friend of mine who was also a channeler said, when you're doing that sort of deep channeling and you're there, and you're in a trance for an hour, that's the equivalent to doing 10 hours of intense physical activity. So I knew then that I really needed to get my SHITE together and eat only really high quality foods and absolutely watch my diet, my thinking, the whole lot. Long story short, I ended up channeling this energy of Edgar for about 3 years, nearly 4 years, leading up till 2012. He was my constant companion. He continually guided me. Not once was I given a bum steer. But I also did so much channeling, and I found it really interesting because most people in New York, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, and all along the northeast of the states were coming to the sessions because they wanted help on their medical issues, because that was Edgar's specialty when he was alive. Instead, the messages were all about this time that we're in now. The messages and the information was about inner transformation, how it's really important for us to change our concepts of reality, how it was important for us to raise our frequencies, become more loving, develop a community. I got a lot of information about the changes that would happen, and a lot of these haven't happened yet. The biggest challenge of all is the inner transformation journey. And we can sort of say, yeah, we're pretty much on the way, we know what we're doing, but how much of humanity doesn't know? And I think that was part of the reasons that I had that Edgar energy with me, was to help people step out of the day-to-day mundane routines of life and to find that other side that exists within all of us. So anyway, that's my story of channeling. I don't channel publicly anymore, which is nice. Thank you.
Now, the hot food will be about 15-20 minutes. So we've got a few more to have. Do you want to have the hot food when it's ready and then have a part 3? Anybody got to rush off to wash their hair or do something like that?
I've got to get a tuck and some Botox.
I can do you a trim. I've got a shaver that'll do your hair for you. But so is that okay? Everybody doesn't mind staying till 5?
Yeah, sounds good.
Because we're enjoying it. I am. I'm really enjoying all of this. And there's so many people who want to talk, don't you, Bev? Do you want to come? You really want to talk? You don't have to, my dear. I'll put you on the spot.
I don't want to go up there though, if that's okay.
Oh, come on.
Oh, come
I'll
on.
hold your hand.
It'll be good. It'll be boost your confidence. It'll raise your vibration.
Come on.
I'm not actually sharing.
See how much they love you.
Doesn't matter.
I'm not. Thank you.
Great gluten-free bread, by the way.
It's more amongst friends. So
There are no stakes. Hey, well, I'm not actually presenting about my life today. And
Oh, in
I
that
just want to
case.
thank I want to really acknowledge the people that have spoken before, and that was just exceptional. You also, and to Michael, thank you so much for providing this for everybody to come. And I'm just a newbie, but I'm here every month now.
You're a great
It's the
asset
fifth
to the
one.
group, I can
So,
tell you now.
It's wonderful. But,
You know
I'll
why?
just-
Oh, go on. Finish that and I'll tell you.
No. I just wanted to share about an experience I had in the last couple of weeks.
Oh, good.
And following on from the speaker that was here last month with animals,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'd been invited a few months ago to go down to Edgar's Mission. Has anybody heard of Edgar's Mission?
in Victoria.
Yeah. Well, I was there a week and a half ago, and it was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. And I just want to encourage everybody to have a look at their website, have a look at what they do, and really seeing that really with kindness and respect for all sentient beings, which is animals, the elements, humans. We're not just here on our own, and speaking
Totally
about
connected.
intergalactical beings and etc. And we were staying in this tiny little house because they've got 3 tiny houses now, and it's an extra way for revenue. And my beautiful friend that invited me from the outback, and we were friends out there for years and we've continued on our friendship, she works with lambs through stations out near Broken Hill, and so at her house there's always some lambs that, you know, being cared for, etc. So anyway, with Edgar's mission from there, but she woke up through the night and she'd brought her swag for me, so I was on the kitchen floor in the swag, and she'd woken up through the night, and these windows around this little tiny home, this incredible photo, I'll post it to the group actually, just amazing. It was like the sky and this massive, massive dome of light just coming out across the paddocks. But it was an extraordinary experience being there. We were there for 3 days, and it was just absolutely extraordinary. So I just wanted to share with everyone, that's my show and tell for what I've been doing for the last couple of weeks.
I was going to add that what you bring to the group is just special. Like, everybody is special, but everybody's different. And what you bring is just the joy, the sort of smile, the warmth, the love that you emit is just amazing. Like, you all have that as well, but in a different way. And I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for speaking up. Thanks, Bev. And thanks for the Okay, who we got now? Dee, did you want to say anything or not? Because you're not on the list. You didn't tell me.
Oh.
You're a very naughty girl. All right.
Talked about it.
Um,
Doing it now or later?
well, do you want to save yours till after food? Everybody will be asleep by then, but no.
Yeah. Have a cold cream.
Have you got, how long is yours? Because we can, how long is yours as well?
Mine's about 5-6 minutes.
Oh, that's, well, you can fit 2 in, I think. Do Dee first and then Kathleen. Do you need the microphone? You've got a very quiet voice.
I'm going to sit down to my back.
Oh, all right. Is that chair all right? I've got.
Yoda's back.
She's channeling Yoda.
It's the virus. So I just wanted to share, because I'm not really, I don't share much about my journey. I keep it to myself, and I think it's coming to a point where I really need to start sharing more. And when I was a child, I used to see auras, and I thought, you know, when you're a child, you think everybody sees the same thing you see. And I was having premonitions of things happening. So I told my mum that there was this religious guy and he got shot and I saw him die, and then the Pope got killed, and then I told her I saw a horse that was clopping up the road with no rider on it, with a saddle, and 2 minutes after I told her about that, clip, clop, there's the horse with the saddle and no rider. So I absolutely freaked my parents out because they weren't, you know, my dad was a scientist and he thought I was making it all up. And so I learned to shut it all down. And then I went into more science, and I studied, because I was naturally a healer with people, I went and studied psychology. And so that, I think, gave me a really good balance to those intuitive skills to then become more of a scientist, to become more objective about things. And I like that balance. I've got a foot in both camps, if you see what I mean. Like, I can, if you look at my chart, my horoscope chart, according to Jane, I'm on the cusp on every single sign in my chart. So I go both ways at the same time. And I remember when I was studying Carl Jung, how he said, it's really important to hold the opposition, hold the equal and the opposite, like paradox. So one of the songs I wrote, one of the lines is, we're here to learn that there is nothing to learn. So you look at the paradox in there, we're here to learn that there is nothing to learn. It's a real, but it's true, because life is complex. It's not, you know, we try and put it into a box of duality. It's either this or that, bad or good. But actually duality is not correct. That's what we've made up. The ego's made it up. Whereas we are one. You are all me. I am you. The things you love about me or the things you hate about me are also you. So that's what I walk and know that all the time, and use that in my practice. So, because I know with duality, I often get despised just because I have the title psychologist by spiritual people, and psychologists will despise spiritual people because they think they're being irrational, and I think, no, none of that, neither of that is true. We are all human, we are spiritual beings actually having a human experience, and we need to suspend that judgment because judgment causes duality, and that's not what we're here for, and it delays ascension. So I suspended all of that sort of psychic ability, and then I went into hospital at the age of 29 with all the stress that I was going through as a workaholic. And I remember signing all the papers to have this operation and feeling so afraid because the medical services in England at that time weren't paying for you to have pre-meds. So I'm actually shaking. I'm really trembling. I'm going, oh my God, I'm going to die. I've just said goodbye to my fiance, my family, and I'm just there with my maker going, oh my God, is this it? And I was terrified. And because, in those days you used to believe if you got the big C, that was it, that game over. It's so not true. And I called out with so much energy. I called out and said, whatever there is that's more than I am, help me. I can't do this alone. And then the whole room, there was this kind of energy in the room that went so peaceful. And it was just like, I stopped shaking. And I saw these two beings form at the edge of my bed that looked like they'd got a head and then a body, but they were lines. So they were like a mixture between, so it was like an angel shape and a guitar or a harp. And there was liquid gold running down these strings. And the liquid gold, as the string vibrated with this liquid gold running down, it telepathically put thoughts in my head. And the first thing that they said was, because there was two of them, we applaud you for calling out to us, because every time somebody calls out to their guides or whatever they were, they always come. And they're always really wanting to help us. They will come whenever you call. And so my psychologist's mind is going, okay, am I having a psychosis because I'm so scared? I'm trying to work it out. But the peacefulness that it brought to me was just beyond anything. And I would never use the word applaud. Oh, where did that come from? We applaud you? I would never say that. I applaud myself. So, and they said, life is a gift. I can't ever forget this. They said, life is a gift and look what you do with it. Because I was this workaholic. I was always just work. I'm in service, I'm working. And because that was the way I was finding value in myself. And they said, you particularly are not here to experience, just working all the time. You are here to experience joy and then share that joy. And you know what? I really struggle with that. Sometimes I do. Other people over here and they have joy so easily, but I'm always like, I keep reverting back to working so hard and I have to keep pulling back. And they told me I could tell other people that about these guides, but saying don't tell them that you have the same thing that you're learning. But remember, we're here to learn that there is nothing to learn. You're learning different things that I'm learning all at the same time. So I'm learning something different. And when I was, just going back a little bit, when I was little, I used to have this blue lady that used to appear. And of course, I fitted it into the story back then, being a Catholic. I thought it was the Virgin Mary that I was playing with. She was very beautiful and loving and gentle, and she used to play with me. And then later on, as a psychologist, I'm going, okay, was that a delusion? Was I having a hallucination of a blue lady? Just because I was a traumatized child? And then now, having studied, and I read somebody gave me this book, said, you need to read this. It was Bringers of the Dawn. And I read the book, and I just threw it across the room. I remember it was like, oh, shocking, because I realised that she was a Pleiadian. So she was about 8 foot tall, didn't have a face, very loving. She's been several times back to just be with me, and it's beautiful. So I feel very blessed to have that, and to have those angels appear. So if I bring it back to present day, recently when I moved house, I got an absolute slap down. Like when you're working so hard again? And I got slapped down to the point where I could not walk for 3 weeks. I was basically just crawling to the toilet, and my back was so bad. But it was amazing because all this transformation internally started to happen, where I was really going inward and talking to parts of myself I'd neglected for years. And things started to change from the inside out. And the other thing that's happened is I'm now waking up with literally words, saying things like, the Hawaiians, their water's being poisoned. This was after Lahaina. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know if that's true or not, so I'm just going to wait. And then it came up in a feed that their water is being poisoned. And I'm like, okay. So the next message, just like a voice that comes in very different as I wake up, was the ACCC, the ones that monitor companies, is that it?
Not the group.
Not CCC. And they said there's something going on there that's really bad. And so I start looking it up, and I look up, they've got a new CEO. You know, you do those little searches everywhere. New CEO, she used to be Rupert Murdoch's lawyer. Her husband's in MKPG, there was some big financial company, and her father has got connections to Nazis. And I'm like, oh my God, what are the FCCC doing now? So I'm trying to work it all out, and whether I need to be a voice to share things like this with people so they know in advance, or whether I don't. Is it true? Can I validate it? So I'm gradually validating things before I might decide to start a channel or something, start telling people ahead of time what's happening. But primarily, I think, echoing what Bente's saying, this time is really about an inner journey where we let go of the duality that's been created by ego over time, and just recognize the oneness and community and love that exists in all of us all the time. So lots of love to all of you.
Great. Thank you. You know this now?
No.
I didn't think so. I
Okay.
psychically knew that.
You did. It's just a light travel story from one of the many adventures of my very exciting life. It was about 30 years ago, and I was in India because I was running an international program called Global Visions in 12 different countries of the world with young people. And I was working in a university called Madurai, sort of central South India, because they were one of my sites. And to thank me for the work I did and the money that we brought into the program, they wanted to treat me to things. So while I was there, they did many things. And one of them was they took me down to Trivandrum, which is the southern tip of India. And it's a life excitement for Indians to go down there, and you get there at dawn and you look out and there are oceans, an ocean to the left, the ocean in front, and then the other ocean to the right. And it's glory, and the sun rises and the spirit comes and the whole place is filled with love and excitement. So as we arrived down there, the weather was not good. We got towards the ocean, it was raining. There were about 2.49 million Indians all on the beach. We couldn't get at the beach. We're not going to be able to see the sun because it was so clouded, because there was a cyclone approaching. So they said, oh, we're really disappointed we can't do this for you. We've got something else for you. So walked across to a port, and in the port there was this rusty little ferry, moderate size, not tiny, not giant, moderate size. And they said, we've got a treat for you. So we were the last people to hop on the ferry. It was cram-packed. We didn't have anywhere to sit or hold anything. So we just had to stand there, held up by the crowds around us. And because there was a cyclone coming, the waves were like that. Literally, no exaggeration. So this little boat would go up to the top, and there was dead silence in the boat. When we get to the top, all of a sudden it was cheers and joy and woohoo, woohoo. Then we'd start to go down, dead silence. So we did that for 6 kilometres. And after the 6 kilometres, we arrived out at this rock. And the rock was the rock where Vivekananda, if any of you know of the work of Vivekananda, a major guru in India, And he'd travelled all over India after he'd been in many ashrams, and he travelled all over India to find out what's my particular work. And he hadn't got the answer by the time he got south of India, so he swam out those 6K to this rock, and he said, okay, I'm sitting on this rock till you tell me what I'm to do. And then in very short order, it only took a few days, he got the answer. Well, you've been he loved India. He said, you've been all over India, you've seen everything. Why do we have to tell you what to do? There are sick people, crippled people, aged people with no home, blah, blah, blah. Okay, he said, great, I'm right. And swam back, and he did this work and many beautiful books written by him. Amazing, amazing person. So anyway, to celebrate that, the Indians had built this little, lovely little building. And you'd go in and you'd see his icons and have a few words to him and whatever. But then there was a little area that had been carved out in the rock where you could go down, just a little area, and you could meditate. And remember, there was a cyclone going on. It was crazy. It was just crazy. So I separated from the group in the temple, and I went down into the little hole in the rock. And I'm sitting in the hole in the rock, and these massive waves are hitting the rock, and the rock is vibrating and everything's crashing and carrying on, and I was still traumatised by the trip there.
So was your stomach.
Oh, the hole in her. So I'm sitting there in the quiet, and next minute the voice said to me, remember this for your life. You are in this rock, and the energies of the world are pounding on the rock as they are pounding on you. All you have to do is go into your beingness, and you are totally protected, exactly as you are protected by this rock in which you are. And it was such a powerful thing. I could never ever forget that message. And I have had a crazy life for lots of, like, as some of you know, I've been kidnapped in Russia. I've had plane crashes. I've fallen off Mount Uluru, and it goes on. I've had many. And interesting, always been looked after, always cherished by the other, the unity, the other. But that lesson was formative in my life at the time, because many of these things happened in the 3 years around that. Go into the beingness inside, and you are as safe as in a huge rock. Remember that story. Thank you.
Okay, we might pause there. It's okay with everybody. Have something to eat, because it might be a marathon. Might need some sustenance.